Hello tankers and tankettes, welcome to a viewer replay. This is FlyerDK, who I'm going to guess is Danish, and he is in the 5916, the tier 6 Chinese scout. Now you don't see a lot of replays of this, it's not really the best machine ever. It does have the distinction of being the only Chinese vehicle that gets an auto-loading gun, or at least I think it is. You might be able to use this gun on the WZ-131 and 132 if you really wanted to. I'd have to check. But you probably wouldn't want to because, frankly, it's a bit naff. It's a bit like the Chiri. If you get one of those targets where you can hurt them, it's got a reasonable enough rate of fire that you can do a pretty decent amount of damage per clip. But honestly, the stock 57mm gun, which is basically a Russian 57mm, it's what you get on the MT-25 and some other vehicles as well, is... I've always used that. You know, I'm actually still very slowly working my way through the 5916. I don't play it very often at all. I don't think it's a terrible machine, but it's better at doing this, what FlyerDK is doing right now. It's better at that passive spotting role, just because it's quite a small machine. It's actually lower profile than the MT-25 as well, but it's not as fast, so it's maybe not as good as getting to those positions first. I can't remember offhand what the spotting range is, but I don't think it's that great either. So of the tier 6 tanks that get an autoloader, which I think these days includes the T-37 as well, I'm sure that gets an autoloading gun. If you compare this gun to the 12T and possibly the T-37, it's not very good if you make that comparison. The penetration is, it's bad. It's a 76mm gun. I can't even remember offhand what the... Is it like 86 pen? No, it's like 76 pen. I'm going to have to look this up actually. But it's pretty bad. It's like tier 3, tier 4 levels of penetration. The gun itself, and for some reason I remember this particular fact, I don't know why, it's not very useful, but the gun itself is listed as being a rank, like 5, rank 6 gun. And you look at things like that and you realise how nonsensical the actual module tiering system is. Because the module tiers don't mean anything. I mean, there are tier 3 tanks that have guns as good as this, basically. It's a terrible gun. And even the premium pen is 102. That I remember. For some reason I can remember the APCR pen. I can't remember the AP pen. But the premium pen I can remember just fine. I don't know why. But yeah, it's not particularly great. Now, for side and rear armor on a lot of the tanks that it's going to meet these days, that's okay, but it can still get into tier 9 battles, bear in mind. So yeah, there are a lot of tier 9s where it will struggle with even the ass armor. So I finally brought up the thing. The AP penetration is 85. Okay. So you get very little extra, like an extra 21 pen with your APCR shells. So if you see somebody running around using this gun, spamming APCR, don't judge them too harshly because the APCR still isn't that good and it's pretty expensive for not being very good. The 57mm actually has, with AP, better penetration than the premium on this, but of course it's just a regular single shell firing gun. But the rate of fire is still pretty good. It's a 57mm gun. But I think the firepower and just the general characteristics of this thing mean that you don't see it around very often, just because there are more capable scouts at tier 6 that just do everything better. This really is a stepping stone to the WZ-131 and the 132. And the 131 in particular, it's a major upgrade in firepower. You get basically a 100mm medium tank gun on a tier 7 light tank, and it's, yeah, it packs a real punch. Like, you can really hurt people with that thing. Anyway, DK has managed to, FlyerDK I should say, has managed to kill that Chiri. It tells you how good the Chiri's armor is that he was able to kill it at this distance with AP. Yeah. But for the moment, he's just sticking with his passive role. We can see we had a couple of tank destroyers go north, but I mean, the majority of the team has they've gone to this southern flank, and that's actually not the usual thing in my experience on this map. You tend to get more people going north and only a couple going south. And on this map, on the southern spawn, that's not a terrible idea because you can defend from that mid-ridge. And if you let the enemy get that mid-ridge, it's then very difficult to defend your own cap. So, the usual way this map works out from this spawn, it's for a reason. You know, there is kind of a logic behind that, but in this case, it was actually the other way around, and the majority of our bigger tanks went south. And at the moment, this team is slightly losing. We're at 4-6. We've lost control of the north, and FlyerDK is basically alone and isolated at this point. Now he spots a lone T28 prot who's very low health, but this guy is facing him more or less frontally. He's also been spotted by an AMX-12T, and is maybe a little bit slow to respond to that fact because he takes a pair of hits that he doesn't need to take. He also unloads his clip, but yeah, that's how light this thing is. It just bounced off a tree. The pen on this means that, yeah, trying to take those shots against the front of the T28 prot. This doesn't get a whole lot of ammo, so that really was a waste of ammo, I think, honestly. The sides and rear of the T28 prot are weak enough that the penetration on the AP would have been more than sufficient if he just closed the distance. But now he's got a bit of a problem because he has to madly dodge this 12T, who's still trying to fire at him, but because he was lighting up that 12T, his allies were able to shoot him. So that's one less thing shooting at him. And we've actually now evened the score a bit, 10-9. So that was a bit risky. He got a bit lucky, but he's now in a position to spot and potentially kill enemy arties. So there we go, that's both arties lit up. The T-44 on his team is killing the GW Tiger P. And that leaves FlyerDK a clear run at the GW Panther, who fires and misses, quite fortunately for Flyer, because this thing, it's got no arm. You know, it's a light tank. It is just, yeah, it's made of paper, and an arty splash would have almost certainly killed him, but because he was able to come in fast and not really give the guy time to aim, the chances of actually getting hit by that shell were somewhat lower than they might have been. So we know from the minimap there is a T-54 near our cap. Our arty have died. And, oh, there's that super Pershing. And that's actually quite a lucky hit on the move. And must have hit his side armor. Now he's on his APCR at the moment because he's only got 2 AP shells left. And that's obviously way less than a full clip. And one of the peculiarities of World of Tanks is that even with just autoloaders generally, even if you don't have enough shells for a full clip, the reload is exactly the same. And that can be annoying sometimes. Like you're in your 5100 and you've just run out of your AP ammo and you've only got, like, say 3 APCR shells left. Well, it's still going to take a full 40 seconds to reload that clip, even though it's half the number of shells, kind of thing. You know, just throwing us that scenario out there. It's the same reload either way. So you might as well go to the full clip. But if he has to go back to the AP, it's going to be the full reload. But on this tank, that's not so bad. So he's got the ass of the T95 to shoot at, which even angled, he's managing to get 1 or 2 pens, see if he can get that last shot in, and he does. That's how weak the ass of a T95 is. But some of the shots, because the T95 was moving, he was actually having to move his gun, and they were pinging into the side and the tracks. And that obviously had absolutely no problem with bouncing these shells. Although, I have to say, this in common, again, with a lot of autoloaders, it can unload the shells faster than it can aim shot to shot. So you can't ever, if you're really aiming, you can't ever get that full rate of fire because you have to sit and wait for the shells to for the reticle to close in. So he tries a couple of shots like T-54, who again is a one shot for this gun, but the 2 that hit do bounce, unfortunately. So he switches his focus to the ass of that T-95 because he knows he can pen that quite comfortably. And he's still thinking about... oh, okay, well done, well done. No, he does get that T-54. That's actually really useful. So, going back has cost them a couple of tanks to defend. And, by the way, I don't know what our IS-6 is doing. Like, the IS-6 killed that Super Pershing. But he's now sort of... From the minimap, it honestly looks like he's just driving around aimlessly. And you will see him do an even weirder thing as we draw towards the end of this battle. So we've come down to a Rheinmetall, this IS-6, who has put himself out the fight entirely, and FlyerDK. And Flyer's gotten the attention of this T-95. But the Rheinmetall, yeah, I mean, it's been pinging for help, and the Rheinmetall's just like, nope. So it looks awfully like the Rheinmetall is actually just abandoning DK and is going to go and try and cap, leaving Flyer to try and defend his own cap against a T-95. Now the T-95 obviously knows he's there, and he has turned to face Flyer, because obviously that's his best armour. But he's doing something maybe a little bit silly. He's actually closing the distance. Now, Flyer was able to get to this, because he had the ass of the T-95, he was never going to close the distance before the T-95 could turn over all that open ground, but he could get to this dip, and did. So he's just using the bushes here to spot this guy approaching. But the thing is, it was the distance that was going to work in the T-95's favour. The T-95 has actually reduced that distance. And he knows where Flyer is. He's obviously been spotted. He's turning to face Flyer. And at this point, because Flyer has got much less distance to cover, and just because the T-95 traverses so slowly, the T-95 screwed himself really hard here. Now this works out fine for Flyer. This is a lot of extra damage for him to do, because the T-95 is just never going to catch him. Not on this terrain. The T-95 is in the open. There's no anything for him to scrape off Flyer against. And the Rheinmetall has basically sacrificed the chance to do extra damage. Because, of course, in turning to close the distance with Flyer, he was then showing his ass in the direction that the Rheinmetall would have been sat had he not decided to go and cap instead and farm those loser points. So he basically threw away a bunch of XP and credits there. But that worked out nicely for FlyerDK, as it turned out, because, well, you can see, you saw at the end there that that T-95 was just like, he just gave up. He just went full on. He was like, what are you waiting for? Just do it. Ah, that impression though. So, yeah, I mean, it was kind of stupid of that Rheinmetall, but as it worked out, it was really nice for FlyerDK, because not only was that an ace mastery, not only did he get an All-X medal for killing 3 vehicles that were 2 tiers higher than him in a light tank, he also got a Fade-Ins medal for shooting the last vehicle on the enemy team, for killing the last vehicle on the enemy team with his last shell. So it was, the Rheinmetall's loss was FlyerDK's gain. And that allowed him to walk away with 1700 base XP. But really, the T-95, we can't blame him too much. He was in an impossible position at that point. He was caught out in the open. And as far as he knew, he was going to get shot in the butt by the Rheinmetall. He didn't know the Rheinmetall was running away. So just being alone in any kind of slow vehicle, even something like a mouse where you have a turret, it's still really bad. You can just get outplayed. And because the ass of the T-95 was so weak that once that distance had been closed, once FlyerDK had an opportunity to get round behind that guy, he was able to get a lot of damage out of just that one vehicle. And so that worked out really nicely for him. But still, this was one of those games where the circumstances had to be just right, basically, for everything to happen as it did. And it was still pretty close. But in the end there, just enough people on his team were doing just enough of the right things that they were able to carry it through. And Flyer himself had some very lucky moments indeed. Dodging some of those shells that he did, getting that T-54 kill was probably quite important. Granted, it was low health, but the chances of penning at that distance, even with APCR, that was pretty lucky. And then that T-95 just being alone, and the Rheinmetall running away and letting Flyer get that bit of extra damage. It all kind of stacked up in the end to make a really nice result. So, yeah, you probably won't see that many more of these replays. In fact, I think this was literally the only 5916 replay I found in my folder. I might get 1 or 2 more after showing this video. That's typically how it works. I put up a replay of a certain tank and I say, oh yeah, I didn't get many replays sent to me of this, and suddenly a bunch more appear in my inbox. And that's fine for later down the line, but just bear in mind, if you're doing that, don't expect me to show it right away, because then you'd get a lot of replays of the same tank in a row, and I don't think that would be a very popular option. So anyway, yeah, it's not bad, but it's very far from great, and hopefully Wargaming have talked about buffing some of the other light tanks now that new light tanks have come into the game, so maybe the 5916 will be one of them. They've definitely talked about doing it with the 131 and the 132, but hopefully this gets some love as well. So, if you enjoyed this replay, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can subscribe to my channel, and as always, stay tuned for more.